right, we are here with Chris Craig and Jeff Daniel, Fixed Ops content owner for Chris Craig from Rocked, and Jeff Daniel, Fixed Operations Director for Maple Hill Auto Group. Chris and Jeff, welcome to the Fixed Ops Mastermind.
Thank you.
Good afternoon.
We're talking about why the turnover problem in automotive, and we broke this up into 3 segments. First segment is reimagining the service department culture. Second is technology and innovation as retention tools. And third is bridging the gap between expectations and reality. And so, first question that I wanted to ask is how can dealerships create a culture of belonging that makes service techs feel valued beyond their technical skills?
Make sure that you involve your technicians, current and prospective, in the layout of the shop, in the bay configurations. I mean, the simple things that we don't think about. Techs have their own toolboxes. They have their own way they like things laid out, right to left, left to right. You get that by talking to your technicians from the moment you interview them to the moment they're an apprentice, and then growing from a mentoring standpoint into an advanced level tech. But it's communication. It's making sure that you're on the same page with that technician and future technicians. And when you say we're going to add somebody, they're on board with it. They don't see their paycheck being defeated. They see it being enhanced.
Yeah, I love that. The communication especially is such a big deal between leadership and technicians. With that, I think empowerment is a big buzzword that we always hear when we talk about leaders and team members. But I think sometimes we kind of lose track of what that actually means. And when you empower people, you're delegating authority, not responsibility, but authority. Because as the leader, you're ultimately responsible for what the team does and has an output for, and you can control that output through training and proper mentorship and things of that nature. So delegate authority to those technicians to make decisions on their own, allow them to make those mistakes and correct those mistakes, and that's how they start to feel like they're really part of the team. And they'll start taking initiative and doing what they need to do with their own expertise to improve their own craft. Nobody wants to fail. They want to succeed. And when you give them the power and authority to succeed in their own right as part of that team, they'll each do their individual efforts working as a team towards a larger constructed goal. And then with that, there's going to be feedback. They're going to come back to the leader of the shop, the foreman, the manager, the director, whoever that is, and provide some feedback. Hey, I ran into this. This is how I handled it. Make sure you listen to them. If you want your team to listen to you, it's reciprocity. You have to listen to them.
Yeah, that is a great point, and you're right, Chris. Like we talk about empowerment in terms of leaders empowering, being empowered to do what they have to do, and empowering advisors and things. But giving the techs more of that empowerment can certainly involve them more in what's going on and make them feel more part of the team, right?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In what ways can leadership implement a mentorship program that not only improves skills but also strengthens interpersonal bonds within the team? So not just mentoring so that your new technician can understand how to do all the basic things and move up and progress through the shop, but also become what we just discussed, that part of the team that and feel like they belong.
You can never replace the knowledge that a technician has. You can only hope to draw it out of their brain into their trainees. So you've made this huge investment in that person, and they're moving up the ladder. And you may or may not promote your A-level, top producing 150+% technician into that role if he's not ready for it. And that means he and management are tied at the hip. They're making decisions that are not laid in stone, but they're both empowered almost at the same level. And this is where I think some shops fail. They give the shop foreman the A tech, and he walks in and he takes the 60Ks and he takes the 90Ks, and that's not how it's going to work. It's going to be successful for one. And to have it successful for all, you've got to lay out a program that, okay, your foreman comes your manager, advisor, dispatcher in the morning says, this is where my technicians are at. This is what so-and-so can take. This is what so-and-so can take, and lay it out. And they're much closer to management level than maybe managers want to give them credit for. And I think that's part of the failure. They don't allow that to happen. And all of a sudden that tech just wants money, he gets greedy. And then when he doesn't get recognition for the store performing well, then he takes his bags and moves on down the road.
I can't agree more. So in 2013, when I shipped off the basic training, within the first couple of weeks of my training, I'm just a little recruit trying to be a soldier. We were starting to be trained on how to be leaders, and I was trying to learn how to follow orders at the time, but yet they were still training me how to be a leader. And I learned then that leadership development has to start right away, because as you said, once those technicians get to a certain level, they may step into those leadership roles. If they haven't been training and practicing leadership during that time, they won't be ready for that role. So leadership development is really very important, and how that can help with teamwork and collaboration between technicians and things is when you start taking on the principles of leadership. One of them is teamwork. You start taking initiative and you start acting with integrity, which are really good characteristics for any employee to have, even if they're not in a position of leadership. They'll start to work together and coach each other and start just making the right things happen along the way as they take those leadership qualities into their character. And then one day, once they're ready to actually step into the official leadership role, they're going to be so prepared for that. And plus, the shop's going to love it because they've been following that person all along.
Yeah, it's a great point, Chris. And Mark Pittman, in his book, The Surprising Gift of Doubt, talks about where we fail a lot of times when we're bringing that person into a leadership role and not realizing that, like you talked about, Jeff, the successful A-Tech, he's been successful in managing himself or herself. Doesn't mean that they can manage other people, right? If they've never been prepared for that. And they need to understand what the difference is between being a successful A player and being successful in leading an A team.
Yeah, you have to have the engagement buy-in from everybody in the shop when you make an internal promotion. It's critical that your other A techs, your other B techs, all are on the same page and says, "Yep, you guys did your homework. That's the right person," and and get out of their way. Let them make some money and keep fixing stuff because we need them.
That's right. And leaders truly aren't appointed. They're decided by the people, by the team.
Yeah. That's an overlooked point often, right?
It is. Yeah,
and you don't necessarily need the title to be the actual leader.
Yes, there's positions of leadership, and then there's those who lead.
Exactly. Love that. Guys, what unconventional perks or benefits have you seen implemented that significantly improved employee satisfaction and retention in your service departments?
Tools. Technicians love their own stuff. Dealers that buy a new facility and man it with a very sweet looking setup of tools and benches and tools that the brand or the OEM wants them to have immediately alienate a lot of technicians. Unfortunately, that's the technician's greatest expense and greatest nick every week. So set up a tool program. Realize that, this guy's going to want a box that's wide and this guy's going to want a box that's tall, but they're all that whatever brand tool guy is there every week, and he wants his fair share. So you start with a program when they're coming out of, say, Express bays. We supply all the tools for Express. We supply the entry level to the next level with $5,000 plus a toolbox, which gets you able to do basic jobs. When that person's ready to, and you sign a little bit of a, hey, those are mine for at the end of a year or two. When you're ready, then they're yours unless we flip them to the next person. Mm-hmm. And you keep that same flow going, and you have to be consistent. If you hire a technician and you're going to spend $5,000 on an apprentice tech, don't give the $5,000 new hire tech a hiring bonus. Give them a tool allowance, because you're giving it to your 20-year-old Express tech, but your 30-year-old ASE master tech comes in the door. Yep, he's going to make more money, but they see that and they hear that, oh, you gave him a new toolbox and I can't even get a creeper ordered or, a new jack stand ordered. So, make sure that they're all part of that and you have a plan that is consistent to everybody, starting at A level down to D level, because they all have different wants and needs, but they all enjoy the tool programs that, unfortunately, that a lot of people, you can give them your best stuff from brand Z, and if they use brand X, it's not going to work.
Yeah, I mean, tools are such a big deal with technicians. That's a really great way to leverage some support to them. I mean, I do social media, and some of the biggest posts I make that go the most viral is when we start talking about tools, because I can't think of another trade that has such a high overhead just to be a member of a team, not a
Right.
business owner, a member of a
Mm-hmm.
team. It's astronomical and insane. But I'll give you two examples. One I experienced and one I thought was really cool that I heard from another fixed ops director. The first one is the shop I worked in. They improved the lighting in the shop. They doubled the lighting. Didn't make it blinding, but it helped it so you could see better. They had a cleaning crew that came in and cleaned the floors every single night. Just made sure your bay was picked up so they can come in and sweep and mop and all that stuff. So you as a technician are working on cars and not working on sweeping the floor, which there's nothing wrong with sweeping the floor, but we know how flat rate works and we have jobs to do and we have multiple repair orders. So that kind of support was very helpful. Air conditioning in the shop. We're in a southern state down here, so that was also a great perk for them to have there. And then lastly, there was toolboxes provided along each wall. Toolboxes are very expensive. People make payments on toolboxes. To have a toolbox installed right there in the wall for you to utilize, so you don't have to worry about that piece, is a big incentive for those technicians. While tools are expensive, at least we're not having to buy a big toolbox if we're going to work in this particular shop that I'm referencing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one I want to share is one I didn't experience, but one that a fixed operations director had told me he had implemented, and I thought it was a really cool idea. He implemented it recently, so I don't have any results or anything back from him. But he implemented this program where once a quarter, if a technician is just having one of those hard weeks, a warranty job is just taking way too long, I'm not booking any hours, my bays are down, I have a lift that's broken, anything like that. Once a quarter, the technician can raise their hand and say, hey, I need a week of PTO, no questions asked, and it's granted once a quarter. So if they're having one of those hard weeks, it's like Wednesday, I'm only got 10 hours, I'm not going to make it, they're not on a guarantee or anything, they can say, hey, I need my week. No questions asked. They get that week of PTO and boom. It's just like that safety net. They know that no matter what happens, I'm going to be taking care of one of these weeks if I have one of those weeks per quarter.
Yeah, that's very cool. I've never heard that approach, and
Neither have I. Yeah,
yeah.
that's why I wanted to reference it, because I thought it was so cool when I heard it.
Yeah, it's it's that safety net that you talk about, right? A lot of other industries don't have what our technicians are going through with flat rate, where come Wednesday afternoon, whatever day it is now, Wednesday afternoon, and they've got 10 hours in for the day. Tell somebody else who's already put in 25, 30 hours that you're only getting paid for 10. And it's a different view on things. So that's very cool to see that. All right, so we're going to move into segment 2, technology and innovation as retention tools. This segment is brought to you by Parts Edge. Your parts department is the backbone of your dealership and is responsible for nearly half of your total profits, according to NADA. Our system works within your DMS for a hybrid approach that combines the precision of automation with the nuanced decision-making of parts experts. Chris, I'm sure you're going to have lots of input here on this one with your experience on social media, but also with what you're doing with RockEd. And so, how can dealerships leverage emerging technologies, AR, AI, new training ideas, to make the job of service technicians more engaging and maybe less physically demanding?
One of the easiest turnarounds we've seen, and the easiest from everybody to put into place, was True Video. And I'll throw a name out there, but video MPIs allow the technician to show the advisor that doesn't know what an XYZ 101 valve is, what it is and why it's failing and where it's leaking, to forward that information to the customer, who now sees their bright white whatever on the hoist. They know it's their car. They see it leaking. They've never been underneath their car before. So it's a transparency thing. Our industry is fraught with the behind the scenes, and I never know what they're doing to my car. They're probably just sitting on the bumper and eating sandwiches, and the car's fixing itself while it's back there. It's an extremely, extremely technical industry today. Make sure that you have the latest and greatest software. If you need tablets to do their job, we just spent we just bought 5 new ones 4 weeks ago for one branch of our dealership because they're going to be outdated in 6 months. Well, 6 months from now, when everybody orders them, they're now back ordered. You're not going to get yours. There might be a package, and I might have saved a couple $100 by waiting, but by getting the new tablets and the wireless internet and all of those perks out in the shop, um, AI is involved with our video presentations with rewriting your, do you want to say this or would you rather use this? And it's instantaneous. You get ready to hit the send button, and it says, "Hang on a second. Would you rather say this?" And you read theirs, and if it makes more sense, you change it, and it's done right now. That's the same thing with technicians that spend a great deal of their time writing stories. Again, they've just spent hours fixing the car. Now the manufacturer makes them jump through the hoops of name, rank, serial number, millimeters for this, millimeters for that, having a program that can assist with that story writing and closing out a repair order. We're the only thing we control in our shops are hours. We install parts, but we sell and control hours. And anything that you can make that technician more productive, simple things like making sure there's phone chargers. You give them a phone, but there's no cord to plug it in with. So why didn't you do a MPI in that one? Oh, it was dead. I didn't get a cord with a phone. Simple things like that. That's not AI. That's this kind of intelligence that still needs to be used. But AI going forward with the technologies in the cars, cars that are broken because the over-the-air network didn't work correctly. They tried to ping a car, and all night long it pinged it, and the guy puts it in a steel hanger, and it only gets a partial internet signal, and the car's dead in the morning. Your technicians have to know that, and they have to understand that. How did it happen, and the ins and the outs, and oh yeah, your antenna was being blocked because you backed it into your airport hangar, and your car's dead. So it's in our cars already. We just don't know it. When you get ready to program grandma's house, you've been there 100 times, but you want to be able to push a button and watch your phone and dashboard light up wirelessly and immediately. And if there's a route change, you use it every day. Technicians need that ability as well.
I love what you said about the technician stories. My mind went straight there as well. And you also referenced, having the pad or the device, but no charging cable, so I can't utilize it. Having that charging cable is providing support to the tool. And that's a way that you can utilize this technology is an indirect approach is there's this relationship between technicians and service advisors. And I always say this, the advisors are the input, the technicians are the output. If there's no input, there's no output. So by supporting service advisors with training like what we do at Rocket is we create curriculums, micro learning on an app. So all new technology, utilizing AI for role plays and training scenarios and things of that nature to improve the service advisor's ability to help their customers, and by helping their customers help their technicians. So their technicians are getting more sensible recommendations from the service lane. They're not wasting their time saying, hey, these tires are bald, let's get these tires replaced. The service advisor is doing a proper walk around, checking those wiper blades, checking those tires, and making those recommendations right there on the service lane, change or saving those technicians time, having to make trips to the service lane and make these recommendations. They're still going to inspect the tires. That's part of their job. But if they already have it on the ticket here that there's an upsell, I don't like that word too much, but an upsell for tires, they're going to say, okay, I don't have to really inspect these tires. They want new tires. So I'm just going to move right into that. So through using technology like what Rocket offers on the app, micro learning, AI role plays, training material, curriculums, to support service advisors to ensure that there's optimal input for optimal output via those technicians is a really powerful way to harness the technology that we have today. I do it on social media every day and I love it. I get DMs all the time from technicians. Hey, I'm sharing this with my advisors. You're helping my advisors so much, or things are getting better here. And that's just through the simple content that I make for free online. And it's a really good feeling when you get that kind of stuff back. And years ago we didn't have social media like that, and for a guy like me to just be able to hop on social media and make a video and help a service advisor, I'm also helping a technician, and that's really cool.
Yeah, back in my day, you had to read it in the back of the TSP booklet that Ford sent out and hope there was a good tip back there. And I use recommendation, Chris, instead of upsell.
Yes, recommendations. Yes, that's it. They need the service. I'm not selling anything. I'm just letting you know what you need. I'm offering something that your vehicle currently needs.
Exactly. Jeff, you mentioned video MPIs. Have you explored using the video MPIs for anything other than just delivering that video MPI? Like maybe a greeting to the customer the day before, like here's what to expect when you pull into the service drive, or your advisor sending a thank you video with the same technology, right? They just don't have to include the MPI in it, but a thank you to the customer a day or 2 days after their repairs.
We've got some information like that on our website, and incorporating it long term is on the agenda. Because we're a multi-tiered brand under kind of one roof right now, we're expanding, but we've got a lot of different hoops to jump through to accommodate all of the powers to be. That being said, I think it's important that the customer, we utilize kiosk. Sorry, customers love them. They want to pick up their car after hours. Guess what? Their keys and the paperwork are in there.
Yeah.
It isn't an upsell tool. Wait a second, it sells 22% of the stuff when somebody says, "Oh, I'm going to pick an air filter. I'm going to pick a cap," and no involvement from the advisor. Does it play out every day? Yeah, the advisors spend enough time texting. Preferred method of contact is texting. We send video links from the technicians, from our express team, reviews from the advisor. We do texting and phone follow-ups the next day from our BDC. The next venture of that is going to be some type of video. The problem being customers are getting bombarded with, one customer comes in, they're going to get 27 prompts to give a survey. Just because the manufacturer, we're going to follow up. If the advisor sends more, it becomes a little bit of an overload. If I buy an ice cream cone, I'll let you know if it's good or not, but I'm not going to fill out a survey online 6 nights a week so people know I want, and that's the intent is you're engaging people to say, yes, I was there, and yes, I had an enjoyable time.
Mm-hmm.
But if 14 people from the same facility respond, God forbid that number 10 through 14, those responses may not be as nice. So, you've got to use it tastefully. You've got to use it. Right now, I think the right way is letting the technicians show the customer their car. Most have never seen what the underside looks like. They know what the advisor looks like. Name tags, making sure that you know who you're talking to when you're on the drive. Simple things.
Yeah.
Do I think that is down the road? Yes, I do. And I think it's critical that they know your advisor is this person. They can look. I have to have an almost all female staff on the drive. Well, I talked to a girl. That used to be okay because there was 7 guys and 1 girl. Now they say I talked to a girl. I'm like, okay, that narrows it down to 1 out of, well, no, there's 7 out of 8 here. So video, yes, there is a difference.
Yeah. We the first dealership I was an advisor at was a Ford store, and there were 3 of us at the front desk, and we were all named Dave. All 3 of us, all named Dave, and you used to get that. Like, do you know who you talked to? I talked to Dave.
Well, they all knew who they talked to then.
Absolutely.
Couldn't miss with a Dave.
All right, we are going to do our quote of the week here, guys. Always treat your customers exactly as you want them to treat your best customers. And that is from Stephen R. Covey. Guys, in what ways can gamification be incorporated into the service department to boost motivation and create a sense of achievement among the technicians?
Well, pizza parties, that fixes everything.
Done.
Yeah. No, so we're blessed to have an OEM that has now picked up on some recognition programs with banners for master technicians, bay banners. They've got a program to reward the technician with vehicle payments based on longevity. So they buy a new car, lease a new car. They can 10-year person can get I think right now it's $200 a month towards a payment, because they know that that technician is valuable. Obviously, they've got to get to and from work. It's not offered to the sales department, it's only offered to the technicians. One of our other brands does something similar based on longevity. It's about $5,000 a year. Those are things that everybody, it shouldn't be at the dealership level only. The OEMs need to also buy into that. That's what's going to separate us again from the independents. The independents are able to offer, 5-day, 4-day work weeks, but yet they're open Saturdays and Sundays. A lot of dealerships are closed those days. We're a dealership, we've got air conditioned shop. Is it a blessing? Absolutely. Been 80, 85, 88 degrees this week. I walk outside my door, it's 73. The techs aren't in there just dreading going to work on that hot car because they know if they step back, they're going to cool off a little bit. It's imperative when you recognize an individual technician that you do it in front of their team members. It's the scuttle that you hear, or the oh well, so and so was just in such and such an office, so they must be demanding a raise. No, it probably wasn't that. It was probably just, hey, how'd that fishing trip go this weekend? Oh, hey, we took second place and blah blah. I mean, people want to know that. They want to be recognized not just for their work, not for the fact that they booked 100 hours last week, but last week they volunteered at a whatever SPCA or a local group to pour soup and feed people. I mean, that's a recognition that we don't do. We buy them pizza and think, oh, that fixes everything. It does not. They're monetarily driven to an extent, but you have to applaud them at every turn. They're, like I said, you're gonna have some downs. You're gonna skin your knees. You're gonna have some hiccups. You don't chastise them. You let them learn, but you also mentor them along and pay for that knowledge. That's the key. When you mentor them long term, you don't pay them for their ability anymore because their abilities are going to go downhill. You pay them for what they've learned up here, and you pay them if that means hourly. Again, you can't replace that knowledge. You've got to find a way to extract it, give it to the next person in line while not offending the person that's giving that knowledge down by saying, hey, I can't pay two people. Yes, you can. You're going to have to do that for a while because you're not going to have enough people. Right now, I don't need any technicians. I've said that for probably the past 4 or 5 years. We've got mentorships lined up. We've got apprentices that are changing oil that have 2 or 3 ASEs already, are ready to move into the next level. That's an accomplishment because you offer training. You have to let them know that you're going to pay for their certifications. Where are you at? I see it's coming due. Give me the bill and I'll get you reimbursed for it. We make it a lot harder than what it is.
I mean, how do you follow that up? You said so many good things there. I mean, fundamentally, you're talking about the apprentice and master, right? As a technician gets older in the trade, their abilities start to diminish a little bit, but their knowledge is just so powerful and so needed. And if that knowledge didn't exist, how in the world do we train the next generation of amazing technicians to fill those shoes and continue that cycle? There's a stigma in the technician community. It's the more I know, the less I make, because I start doing these higher level jobs. I do more warranty work now. I make less on flat rate. I get more per flat rate hour, but my flat rate is going down because I get less hours as a result because I'm chasing these really difficult electrical diagnostics. And now I'm having to train these people and I'm not getting paid for that. Certain dealerships, of course. But there is that stigma out there, and I love that you're aware of that, and that's really important to turn that tide around and encourage that increase of knowledge and encourage them to master the trade so that they can become the mentors of the next up and coming generation. And again, with the gamification, you referenced recognition and individual recognition. That's what's fundamentally flawed about the pizza party is its recognition that's just like a check in the block. Like, hey, we're going to recognize everybody with a couple boxes of pizza during the workday. So make sure you're still, greeting customers and flagging hours while you eat your pizza, and we appreciate you. And then they go back in their office. That's what's fundamentally wrong with the pizza party. But individual recognition, and especially recognition outside of the dealership, like, hey, how'd you do in your tournament that you played in golf this weekend or anything like that. And that's having that connection with your team, but also recognition for what occurred actually in the dealership. You can have any game that you want to have. But if there's no reason to strive for victory in that game, then there's no game. I'll give you an example. It's an unfortunate example. There was a competition for who could recommend and sell the most alignments to customers that needed them. So I grabbed my porter and I'm like, hey, I got them all excited. I'm like, hey, check all these alignments. Bring that paper to me before this customer leaves. We're going to be getting these alignments taken care of. These customers need them anyway, so let's make sure we recommend them. And I was pushing alignments like no other. I mean, I was kind of overloading the shop a little bit, and I took the victory stance in that, and nobody noticed. The man, I mean, there was a prize too. I never saw the prize. The management team got what they wanted out of it, but I didn't get my at least recognition, like, hey, you two did the best job. So the next time it came around, I didn't compete in it because I didn't see a reason for it, because I felt like I was kind of being used at that point. So that individual recognition is so important. Pull everybody together and give people their roses when they're due, and you're going to start shattering limitations, because all of a sudden technicians are going to be like, wait, technician over there did that? That's possible? Okay, so if he can do that, I can do that. And then they're going to start raising the bar, and it's going to be competitive in nature and positive because there's roses at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. That was a whole show right there from you two, man. So last question in this segment: how might the concept of entrepreneurship be applied in a dealership service department to foster innovation and give technicians a greater sense of ownership? And Chris, I think you had a good point about this with the empowerment of technicians, right? And now how does that tie into how can we get more innovation from doing that with them?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I'm currently reading a book right now that was recommended to me by a fixed operations director, a different one from the previous example in the book. It's called It's Your Ship. I'm only 2 chapters into this book, but have you read that book? Okay.
Yes,
So
great book.
and the concept is he took command of a ship, and he empowered his sailors by saying every time they had a question, instead of solving the problem for the sailors, he just said, hey, it's your ship. What do you think? I would say take that same principle and apply it to It's Your Shop. When those technicians are having some sort of an issue or something like that, and they go to the manager like, hey, this is a problem over here. I'm having an issue with this over there. Ask that technician, well, what would you see as a solution? They're in the shop every single day. They're seeing operations every single day. They have the vantage point and the expertise to point the leader in the right direction. And that's a really good thing to harness and pull out of them. So when they get asked that question, first of all, they're probably going to be blown away, like, whoa, you want to know what I would do? And then if it's a good idea, and it probably is going to be a good idea, implement that idea. And then all of a sudden that technician feels like it is their shop, like they are the entrepreneur, and like they actually have a say in the way things go, and they feel valued, empowered, and appreciated with the skill set that they bring to the table.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of managers, especially younger, are worried about the empowerment, and well, maybe that guy's going to be smarter than me and take my job. That's my job. My job is to empower people to take my job.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, whether it's today, tomorrow, 6 months from now, you can't hold a grudge if somebody brings a good idea to the table, and you can't steal that idea either. If that person comes up with a great idea and the manager implements it, that one person is never going to bring you an idea again. So it's got to be, hey guys, Tom over here came up with a great idea, and boom, 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 boom. I'm in support of it. What do you guys think? And again, you get everybody to buy in, because Tom may be the guy that never says a word in a team meeting, never says a word when they go to lunch, you know, and all of a sudden Tom's in the spotlight, but maybe doesn't want that glory. He wants to hear from everybody else. And maybe Joe over there's got a different idea and says, yeah, we're going to do that, but what about this? And all of a sudden, it's, again, total buy-in. You make a change. Hey, if we do this and we put this rack over here, we can store this stuff underneath there, and that's going to free up half a bay, and we can do our eyesight alignments over here. I mean, and all of a sudden everybody clicks and jumps together, and 5 minutes later, 10 people get the job done instead of 5 hours later, one person got it done. So it's buy-in and making sure that you empower that person when they make a decision. Again, pass or fail. If they fail, you support them. You bring them in and say, okay, next time, what would you do differently? Because we didn't win that one. So let's work on winning the next one. So what would you, okay, let me add this to that. Okay, and a light bulb should go off. If the light bulb doesn't go off, then you then you start looking at the empowerment, and maybe you haven't brought the right person or the right context, or need to change your message. But you don't take it away from them because they made a mistake. You don't override them. You don't step in a conversation and take over the conversation. You listen and learn. They listen and learn.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to listen. You got two ears for a reason. If somebody says we need more of this, and it's something stupid simple, you got to get the stupid simple stuff handled and not walk around it, because they'll remember that 3 days later.
Absolutely.
And does it empower me if I tell you we need to add more soap to the men's room and you don't order soap?
When you empower team members, there's really only two outcomes, and it's win or learn. And each is equally powerful for that team member that you've empowered with that decision. Don't beat them down when they make a mistake and fail. Let's learn from that mistake and grow, and let's win the next time around. I love it.
Yeah, Jeff, I worked for that guy who stole ideas at one point. It was always, that's a terrible idea, and then 2 weeks later he'd go, I have this great idea, I'm going to fix the shop.
I also might know how that feels.
And so I've told this story before, but I was working at a shop, running a store, and it had one of those parts vending machines for shop supplies. And one of the techs said to me, hey, we have a bunch of empty slots in it. He's like, could you put snacks in it? And I'm like, never thought of it, but sure, why not? So we went to the local Costco and just bought a big box of snacks, little Oreo cookie bags and Cheez-Its and things, and put it in the thing. And man, I'll tell you, you would have thought you handed all those guys $1,000. They were so psyched to go over and get a pack of batteries for their flashlight and go, oh, I can have a pack of Cheez-Its, and get a pack of Cheez-Its. And it was never abused, and man, they absolutely loved it. And that came from the shop, right? That wasn't an idea that me or the GM or the owner came up with. That was a tech in the shop that said, can we do this?
Yeah, you usually find the most ingenious and innovative ideas among the team members who are doing the job every single day.
They sure will. All right, now we're going to move into segment 3, our last segment, and that's bridging the gap between expectations and reality. This segment is brought to you by Automotive Warranty Network Incorporated, family-owned and operated claims management service based out of Denver, Colorado. They currently process more than 100 million in warranty per month. And first question in that segment is, what strategies can dealerships employ to better align the expectations of new hires with the realities of the job, reducing early turnover?
Well, I can start in on this one. I conducted a needs analysis summary. I interviewed 11 industry experts and built a survey from that, launched it to my social media, and gained 804 responses from automotive professionals from dealerships, independent shops. Over 75% of the survey takers were technicians or maintenance technicians, so it was right in the target audience. I also had some service advisors, service managers, general managers, fixed operations directors, and shop owners that weighed in on that survey, and I calculated all the data and wrote the free white paper, which you can find on Rockhead's website if you're interested in looking it over. Really interesting data. One of the questions I asked was to rate 1 to 5 how deficient new hire technicians are in certain areas. And 2 of those areas was effective communication and motivation. Well, the center, number 3, the neutral option, was the winner of those questions among the 804. So I decided to sort out the 804 professionals into leadership. So I pulled all the owners, the foremans, and the managers and the directors. And then I calculated that same question again, just with leadership roles out of the sample. And the same trend remained. It was neutral. Well, neutral to me means, well, I don't really know how effective my new hire technicians are at communication or how motivated they are. So if they don't know, that means they're not communicating with those new hire technicians. So how can you set their expectations of the culture shock, especially if you're coming from the top of your class? You just rebuilt a transmission and an engine and did electrical diagnostics in college or wherever you came from, and now you're changing oil. How can you manage those expectations and encourage them to grow within that first 6 to 12 months if you're hiring them and then walking away and never looking at them again or communicating with them? And it's indicative that that is potentially what's happening among leaders right now in the automotive industry, because they answered, I don't know, to that question on a survey, which is part of this needs analysis summary. So it was a really telling piece of the data that told me that communication is probably lacking there in some cases, a lot of cases between leadership and new hire technicians. And if we could bridge that gap and start communicating it, that's how we can start setting those expectations better.
I found one of the simplest tools was we get new hires or trainees, I should say, from our schools, local, and they have a very dedicated. Did they do this? Did they do this? Their checklist, which has to be turned in weekly. I'm looking at that going, wow, if we modified some of the wording on there and gave it to our team leader, whoever that is, and if it's an oil change employee, and are they able to do A, B, C, and D? At the end of 3 weeks, they should be here. At the end of 6 weeks, they should be there. And you tell them on the hiring point, but you take that information that a school uses to grade somebody that you're bringing in, and they're on apprenticeship. They've got to earn credit. So they've got certain things that they have to be able to perform to get credit. They have certain things they have to perform for us to continue to pay them. But if they don't know what those expectations are, why am I not getting paid? Well, because that's the third car that didn't have a drain plug that left. Well, nobody told me I had to put it back in. They just told me to take it out. So, I mean, so you have to give them right from the get-go, this is where you should be, this is where you should be here, and then review them, and then give them the next stepping stone. Okay, you're a D-level tech, you get all your training done, you do this, and you're able to complete these tasks. The next level is this. That also increases your rate of pay, your responsibilities go up a little bit, but you have to start them. Half the people walk in the door, whether it's an advisor position or a technician, they've never worked in this industry. You hired them because their personality was good. They know how to fix their computers, or that person was a wait person at a store, and you love the job they did. So, wow, they could make it as an advisor, but they don't know anything about cars. Well, at the end of 30 days, they should have a handle of, oh, there's 4 tires on a car. I mean, is that a real question? It is when the tire expert comes in and needs advice, and you're the advisor, and you're going, I didn't know your car had tires. And now they fill out that survey from the manufacturer. So, I mean, again, we forget about the simple things, and the simple things are you can't meet an expectation if you don't set an expectation. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, if you don't know what's expected, they don't know what it's expected. Good luck buying pizza and be happy.
That's so true. Fundamentally, on so many levels. I mean, you think about a service advisor and a customer. If you don't set an expectation, that customer is going to make one up in their head. You're not going to know what it is. How are you ever going to meet it?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. And Jeff, you kind of touched on a bunch of these things, but how can service departments create clear, attainable career pathways that motivate technicians to stay and grow within your organization?
For us, tiered pay plans. You start off at an entry level. They know that if they get to the next level, they get this. They get to the next level, they get this. They have the ability to mentor and grow and not be devastated financially. And my retired technician that's come back twice now because we hired a new technician that needed training is making the same rate hourly as he did when he was working flat rate, because I'm using his knowledge. He's not turning a wrench.
Yeah.
He's sitting there pointing stuff out, looking at this and walking through the schematics. And, he's the guy that's saying, okay, what would you do next? Okay, let's look at that again. What would you, okay, now it makes sense. But you have to put them on they're not the back end of the business. From a technician standpoint, they're the front end of the business. They know that. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't have them fixing your cars, guess what? Sales doesn't sell a car because nobody's going to be in there because you can't fix anything. You've got to lay it out again from the starting point. 5 years from now, we expect you to be here. 10 years from now, we expect you to be there. You've got 5-year anniversary stuff. You've got 10 years. You make sure that your door is always open when there's a problem. I find it hard. I don't. I see what happens in some other areas where you make promises and you bring a rash of people in and you promise them the world. This place is going to rock. I need 15 guys immediately and I'm going to pay you this much an hour. And 6 months later, you've taken a job somewhere else to do the same thing. And you've just devastated that dealership, uprooted people and moved them into an environment that you're no longer there to make those promises that you made. And now what? Now you've soured out of those 15 technicians, maybe 10 of them leave the industry because they were, again, dangled carrot. Nothing happened, never saw the prize. It got told there was a prize, won it, but never saw it. And that's why so many techs have left the industry. It's lack of the long-term goal. What's in it for me in 30 years? My hands won't work, my back won't work. Why do I get out now? No, because I want your knowledge, and I'll pay for that knowledge.
Yeah. So I'm 30 years old. I came up professionally in the area of online and digital resumes and applications, and I think that plays a role here. Nowadays, I mean, for example, I was living in Pennsylvania. I shot a resume out to like 3 or 4 dealerships in the South. A dealership in Nashville picked me up, and I moved to Nashville right then and there, using technology, GPS to figure out how to get there, different like things online to find a place to rent, and then using online resources like Indeed or something like that to get a resume out to a dealership I've never heard of before. And it goes vice versa. So you can recruit using these online resources as well. And what kind of occurs from this is you start to kind of see this culture of shop and job hopping every now and again, where it's very easy to find new places. It's not like you have to walk in, fill out a paper resume, and do your research in the newspaper or anything like that anymore. It's so easy to find a job
Mhm.
anywhere in the United States, frankly, if you're willing to move. And there's a stigma that I've discussed with a lot of different people, some content creators, that the only way to get a pay raise or anything like that is to move to another shop, or the only way to get promoted is to go to another shop. So we have to compete harder to keep our talent in our stores, in our shops. We have to give them a good reason to stay. I love what you had mentioned about tiered pay plans and things of that nature, because it shows progression. It gives them something to strive for, and it's achievable, and they will get there. And I think that's really amazing. You see it all the time where my wife worked in dealerships too. That's how we actually met. And she got hired at a certain rate. And then 2 years later, people were getting hired at rates for jobs under her or the same as her at higher rates, but she wasn't seeing pay raises. And it was very apparent that that was occurring. And that's part of why people end up leaving places for other places that get that higher rate, because now we're hiring at a higher rate. So
Mhm.
that pay is definitely a factor there. But also, I really love it when people encourage promoting from within. If I don't feel like I can grow in this dealership, I'm probably not going to stick around for very long. And
Right.
I saw it a lot when I was a service advisor. Not that I was ready to be a service manager or anything like that, but I was in some stores that were going through them too. But I would always watch them hire an assistant manager or service manager from outside of the organization. They'd pull them in from another dealership or somebody off Indeed. They would never like groom and grow an advisor to take a step that really wanted to take that step into that service manager position. And that's really important to be able to see that there is a path forward. So promoting from within, which encourages people to stay. I love the tiered pay plans. And then also discussing, like, how did you get to be a director and a manager or a shop foreman? What was your pathway through the industry? That's really helpful for and insightful for a technician to hear from somebody that's actually in the boots and shoes that they want to be in one day. And then when you're promoting from within, they can hear that from multiple people, and a technician
Mhm.
can say, wow, those 3 people did it, so can I. I'm going to stick around here because these people actually care about, growing me as a professional. And I think that's a really important piece.
Yeah, that's again some great points from both of you there. Um, Chris, for your next book that you can read, there's a book called Modern Elder or The Modern Elder by Chip Conley, talking about what you were discussing, Jeff. The fact that as your workforce can't do the same job they did before, but they still have all that knowledge in the industry that you don't want to get rid of. And obviously, Chip Conley's not coming from the automotive industry, from the business world, but he joined, I think it was Airbnb, and he was like 30 years older than everybody that was in the company. But he was there that's where he came up with this idea of the modern elder, because he was there for his experience, right? He wasn't there to be the boots on the ground and all that. He was there for his experience.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. I read books all the time. So,
Yeah, it's a great one. Uh, Guys, last question. In what ways can dealerships involve service techs in the decision-making process to improve job satisfaction and reduce the feeling of just being another employee?
Um, Easiest is making sure that anything, and I mean anything that they request, be taken seriously. I've have female technicians. We don't have a female locker room in this building.
Mm-hmm.
New building. One of the first things that the owner did was said, "Okay, this area over here," and pointing at our female techs, and I have several. That's the women's locker room. You know, with stalls, with individual lockers, place to wash their hands. Did they ask for it? They shouldn't have to. But
Right.
if they do and they say, hey, I need a blah, 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 someone needs to organize the tool room. It's costing us money. It's numbers. Could you have a part time kid come in? Could you have a lube tech come back there and, okay, I need them put in ABCD order. The techs are busy. You know, that's a simple request. If that request gets written down and it's on page 13 and you never read page 13, their input is not valued. Their output certainly is, but you've got to understand their input is one of the most critical things in a dealership. If they say we've got a serious issue with blah 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 tool or a hoist or whatever, it probably is going to hurt somebody and or affect somebody's financially. Fix it. Get the tool part, get a hold of the repair guy, whatever it's going to take. If they say we've grown so much, you know the numbers, we need another transmission jack. Well, that's $4,000. Okay, what's it going to cost you if you don't have one? You know, those are things that um, be visible, listen, give. I don't want to say give them all of what they want, but come up with a strategy that says the door's always open. If you need something and it makes sense, I'm going to make sure we get it. You know, and the owner is empowering people to say, okay, you run that store, you make that decision. I don't want to know about it. Just make it happen. Get to build the right person and move on. You know, is there going to be a mistake where, yeah, that was 15 grand. I wish you would have brought that one up ahead of time, but you know, thank you. Yeah, not a problem. So I always beg forgiveness if I do those, but
Yeah, that open door policy is so important. We've all worked for that one boss or leader that we didn't really present problems to because we didn't feel like that they were actually going to help us solve that problem or provide us with a solution. So then we're trying to like bootleg a solution on the side. I actually worked in a dealership one time where I always went to my dispatcher to get my mentorship and my questions answers and things like
Mm-hmm.
that because that dude knew what was going on in the shop and he was a service advisor before I was, so he could definitely show me a thing or two. Never went to my manager with problems. If I had a customer who was upset, I went to my dispatcher, didn't go to my manager. And he helped me implement solutions and things like that. So having that open door policy is important, but sometimes you have a meeting and you're like, hey, what's going on? And then everybody's just throwing thing after thing after thing after thing. We don't have this. This is broken over here. I don't know what to do about this. This is disorganized. This guy's not showing up. And then you have that deer in the headlight looks with the service manager. It's like, well, why don't you come and tell me? Well, that's an indicator that they don't really have confidence in your ability to solve those problems for them. So have that open door policy, but you have to have, again, that reciprocity. You have to listen to them for them to listen to you. So if they're not comfortable coming to you for solutions, they're not comfortable listening to your policy and procedure. So they're probably going to overlook that as well. And then you have a bunch of individuals trying to do their own thing in their own way, trying to succeed, but they're not really gelling as a service team or as a technician community or anything like that. And then you start to get kind of like hostility and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just not a good situation to be in. So have that open door policy, have those meetings, and then like you were saying, make sure that you take those suggestions in. And I always encourage, don't make complaints, make solutions. So tell me what's wrong and tell me how you'd fix it. We might not use that. We might talk it through and come up with a solution that's a meet in the middle, or maybe we'll brainstorm it with the other technicians in the room and we'll get a solution through and everybody has a little buy-in that way. But having that process and not just saying, well, I'm the leader and I'm going to make the decision here, close the door while I figure this out. Including those technicians, including those team members in those decisions when they call out something that's clearly a problem and they
Mm-hmm.
have a good solution for it, saying, okay, how do you want to implement it? And then talk that thing through and give them some buy into that process. and it'll really help them feel, again, empowered and part of the team. That entrepreneurship plays a role there, and they'll feel confident in bringing those things to your attention with those solutions. They'll be excited to, actually, because they know that they can inspire true change that's for the better for their team.
Guys, again, I think just that question is a whole show on its own. So our statistic of the week that we'll close the show out with: the turnover rate for technicians is estimated at 49%, and service advisors it's at 46%, and that's from the NADA workforce study done in 2023. Those are staggering and disheartening numbers. And I appreciate you guys spending some time here to try and start to turn that around. Give some stores and some leaders some ideas about what they can do to keep their technicians, keep their advisors, because we need every one of them in this industry. There's too much experience, knowledge, and potential that's either not walking in the door or walking out the door, and we can't continue that. Jeff and Chris, thank you again for your time. I really appreciate you guys being here this week.
Thanks, David. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having us.